How do we define a free market? Free market is an economic system based on supply and demand with little or no government control. It is a summary description of all voluntary exchanges that takes place in a given economic environment. Free markets are characterized by a spontaneous and decentralized order of arrangement through which individuals make economic decisions. Based on its political and legal rules, a country's free market economy may range between very large or entirely black markets. A free market is one where voluntary exchange and the laws of supply and demand provide the sole basis for the economic system. Without government intervention, and there are no coerced or forced transactions or conditions on transactions, but while no pure free market economies actually exist, and all markets are in some ways constrained. Economists who measure the degree of freedom in markets have found a generally positive relationship between free market and measures of economic well-being.
History of free market. Nobody invented the free market. It arose organically as a social institution for trade and commerce. Even without money, human beings engage in trade with one another. Evidence of these stretches back far longer than written history can explain. Trade was informal initially, but economic participants eventually realized that a monetary medium of exchange would help facilitate these beneficial transactions. The oldest known media of exchange were agricultural, such as grain or cattle, or debts related to grain or cattle. Likely as far back as 19,000 to 6,000 BC, it wasn't until around 1000 BC that metallic coins were minted in China and Mesopotamia, and became the first known example of a good that functions only as money.
Benefits of a free market. The absence of governmental influence allows both companies and individuals a wide range of freedom. First benefit, freedom to innovate. In a free market economy, business owners enjoy the freedom to come up with new ideas based on consumers' needs. They can create new products and offer new services at any time they want to. As such, entrepreneurs rarely rely on government agencies to notify them of consumers' needs. The entrepreneur do their own research and identify popular trends. The innovation among different private companies can lead to competition as every company tries to improve on the feature of its products to make them better. Second benefit, consumers drive choices. With a free market economic system, it is the consumers who decide which products became a success and which one fails. When presented with two options of products, the consumer evaluates the feature of each and chooses whichever one they want to. Ideally, opting for the one that offers better. To a great extent, the consumer also influences the price set of a product. As such, producers need to strike a balance between the price point that earns them a profit but still affordable by the average consumers.
Drawback of a free market. Despite its benefits, a free economy also comes with a few drawbacks. First is dangers of profit motives. One disadvantage of a free market economy is that some producers are driven exclusively by their profit motives. Even though the primary goal of any business is to generate profit, such an objective should not be prioritized over the needs of workers and consumers. Put simply, a company should never compromise the safety of its workers or disregard environmental standards and ethical conduct, thus so it can make supernormal profits. The second one is market failures. At times, a free market economy can spin out of control, causing dire consequences. Good example of market failure include the Great Depression of 1930s and the real estate market crash that happened 2008. Market failures can lead to devastating outcomes such as unemployment, homeless, and lost income.
Government intervention is any action carried out by the government or public entity that affects the market economy with the direct objective of having an impact in the economy beyond the mere regulation of contracts and provision of public goods. It advocates the use of different economic policies in order to compensate for the flaws of the economic system that give way to large economic imbalances. They believe the law of demand and supply is not sufficient in order to ensure economic equilibriums, and government intervention should be used to assure a correct functioning of the economy. Common examples include prohibition of specific exchanges, taxation, regulations, mandates on specific terms within an exchange, licensing requirements, fixed exchange rates, competition from publicly provided services, price controls, and quotas on production, purchases of goods, or employing hiring practices. Common justifications for politically imposed constraints on free markets include consumer safety, fairness between various advantaged or disadvantaged groups in society, and the provision of public goods.
In an unregulated, inefficient market, cartels and other types of organization can wield monopolistic power, raising entry costs, and limiting the development of infrastructure. Without regulation, businesses can produce negative externalities without consequence. These all leads to diminished resources, stifled innovation, and minimized trade and its corresponding benefits. Government intervention through regulation can directly address these issues. Another example of intervention to promote social welfare involves public goods. Certain depletable goods like public parks aren't owned by any individual. This means that no price is assigned to the use of that good and everyone can use it. As a result, it is very easy for those assets to be depleted. Governments intervene to ensure those resources are not depleted. Nevertheless, the government should be cautious when setting and applying regulations, as an incorrect comprehension of the market structure may bring a higher cost to social welfare instead of the expected benefits. In order to achieve an optimal regulation level, government should analyze and determine if natural monopolies can be sustained whenever they ensure a lower total cost. If this is the case, the government will have to guarantee that the firm does not make excessive revenues and that fair prices are maintained. If, on the contrary, the total cost of the industry would diminish if new firms entered the market, the government should regulate their entrance. Essentially, what government should do is to correctly balance the conflict between the industry's efficiency and its profitability.
Arguments in the government intervention. There may be arguments in government intervention like governments liable to make the wrong decisions because of political pressure groups. They spend on inefficient projects which lead to an inefficient outcome like road project, public parks, and etc. Government intervention is taking away individuals' decision on how to spend and act. Thus, economic intervention takes some personal freedom away, and the market is most efficient in deciding how and when to produce. But then it depends on how the government in the society works.
Article about intervention of government in the economy Philippines. President Rodrigo Duterte has issued an executive order placing a price cap on pork and chicken products in Metro Manila. The Executive Order number 124 imposes price ceilings of 270 pesos per kilogram for Skasim and Pige, 300 pesos per kilogram for Liempo, and 160 pesos per kilogram for just chicken, sold in the capital region for 60 days. It was published in the official gazette on February 1, 2021, the same day it was signed.
Consumers have been dealing with rising food prices over the past weeks, all while reeling from the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. Pork prices, in particular, have been moving up as supplies continues to take a hit, with some pork-producing provinces still recovering from the African swine fever outbreaks. Pork Producers Federation of the Philippine Vice President for Luzon, Nicanor Briones, said that the African swine fever outbreak, increased the importation, and smuggling are some of the factors that contribute to the price of the pork and chicken products.
The government has made their move by putting a price cap on meat, especially pork and chicken, due to the increasing prices. Because we're in a pandemic, the price cap is implemented to help the consumers. But the reasons as to why there is a price increase is due to the African swine outbreak, plus cases like increased importation and smuggling. There may be advantages and disadvantages in this case, like lowered price can increase demand for meat, but the downside is sellers in the market will be affected, as since suppliers increase their prices plus the price cap, the result is sellers will have little profit. That is why the government should investigate more fully about this case and to know what further solutions and steps to take.
In a free market, inequality can be created, not through ability and hard work, but privilege and monopoly power. Without government intervention, firms can exploit monopoly power to pay low wages to workers and charge high prices to consumers. Without government intervention, we are liable to see the growth of monopoly power. Government interventions can regulate monopolies and promote competition. Therefore, government intervention equality of incomes, which is perceived as fairer. Aside from governments may intervene in markets to promote general economic fairness, the government tries to combat market inequities through regulation, taxations, and subsidies.